Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. For those who are new, welcome. My name is Monica, and for those who are not new, welcome back. It's great to see you here. So, the mid-year book freakout tag. I am just going to get right into it because I don't want to make this video too long because I have multiple answers for these. So let's just get into the questions. The first question is the best book you've read so far this year. I have so many, okay? I link this video down below. It's the books that I've read from, I think, January to April. And I'm going to be doing the next one, I think, in September, where I'm rating my 5 stars to make sure that I am picking out the best of the best. But just a kind of a sample of that. The Duchess Takes a Husband by Harper St. George, Grim and Barrett by Juliette Cross, and a Gem by Kate Canterbary. Long Shot by Kennedy Ryan. I put that one off for years. I'm sorry I did. Yours Truly by Jimenez. For Lucy by Juliette. That was one of the 12 books that I read that was recommended by 12 friends. Yeah, it's The Court of Silver Flames by Sarah J. Maas. Crimson River by Devney Perry. And The Wolf and the Wildflower by Stacey Reed. Those are just some of the few that I read that were 5 stars, and I loved them. And they're definitely going to be on top. In the top of my 2023 list. Question 2 is, it's the best sequel I've read this year. Again, there's multiple. Echoes of You by Catherine Cowles. A Court of Wings and Ruin by Sarah J. Maas. Heartless by Elsie Silver. Reckless by Elsie Silver. On Thin Ice by L.A. Cotton, and I'll get to that one in a little bit. So question 3, what new release I haven't read yet, but I really want to. Beyond the Thistles by Samantha Young. King of Pride by Anna Wong. The Right Move by Liz Tomford. Don't come at me, please. I still haven't read it. Rewrite Our Story by Kat Singleton. Then question 4 is my biggest surprise. Okay, one of my biggest surprises is Tempt by Melanie Harlow. And why do you ask? Is because this is the first Melanie Harlow book I've ever read. And I think this was like the 3rd or 4th book I've read of hers that actually really worked for me. I read it because a friend of mine was like, this is something you should read. You will really enjoy it. Give Melanie Harlow one more chance. And so I did. And oh my gosh, I loved it. It was like it was ex's dad. It didn't feel too daddy kink, okay? Because I don't really like daddy kink. But anyway, I digress. So I really loved that one. So then I went and read Runaway Loved, which I actually really liked too. So I'm more willing to give more chances to Melanie Harlow because of Tempt. So that was a huge surprise. Another surprise is My Dark Romeo by Parker S. Huntington and L.J. Shin, because I actually liked the book. I didn't think I was going to like it. I was going to read it because of Jacob Morgan. I love Jacob Morgan. He's one of my favorite male narrators. I heard it was going to be completely unhinged, and I read it right when it came out before most people read it. And I was like, the girl's going to turkey base herself. But oh my gosh, I honestly couldn't tell you what I was reading when I was reading it, but I had a damn good time reading it. And it was fun. And it was something that was just a fun time that I really enjoyed. And I was surprised that I liked it as much as I did. So yeah, that was a surprise. The other surprise is the genre of fantasy romance in general. I read all of ACOTAR, and I didn't think I was going to like it because I'm not the biggest fantasy romance person, but I really, really enjoyed it. And then I read The Serpent and the Wings of Night by Carissa Broadbent, and I loved that one. That one is fantastic. And then I read The Fourth Wing by Rebecca Yarros, and I love that one. I'm actually loving a lot of different fantasy romances that I've been picking up. I'm surprised that I've actually liked as many fantasy romances that I've had, because they're generally not my favorite. They're not my bread and butter. They're not really what I typically gravitate towards, but I really did enjoy it. So those were my surprises. Okay, let's move it along. Question 5 is my biggest disappointment. Okay, it's because I had high expectations for these. It's the Ravenhood series. I got to a specific part and apparently is the part where everything was just starting to happen. But it was in Exodus, and it was the part where she said, compared Tobias to her father, saying he was more of a father to her, and then they went to Pound Town, or whatever you want to call it, and I was like, no. And that's why. I just, that was it to me. I just like, I couldn't deal with it. And on top of that, I really was confused for most of it. I needed to know more to go ahead. If I had known more, I probably would have been okay to get past that. But because I was still in the dark of what was going on, I didn't have the patience for it. And I was like, nope, done. So, and I'm not going to go ahead and talk about the next one, but we all know If This Is Love by Juliette. And the reason why this was such a big disappointment is because I read it around the time I read For Lucy. And I gave Lucy 5 stars. I loved that book. That book was fantastic. And I was like, I'm going to love If This Is Love. And I was irritated by it. So, and we all know why. And I'm not going to rehash the whole thing. So let's just move on to question number 6. What favorite new authors? So, Corinne Michaels, her trilogy with the one that's like Remember Me, and then they're up here is Remember Me, Give Me Love, and I just binged that series. I loved it. So I started binging more of Corinne Michaels, and then I just read her newest one. I think it was Forbidden Hearts. I'll put that up there. And that one was a 5-star read, was the last one I read of hers, and I loved it. Another new author to me was Sarah J. Maas. I read all the Akatar series, and I will go ahead and eventually go through the rest of her backlist. And then I can't forget about Scarlett Scott. She wrote The Heartless Duke, which is like the best enemies to lovers I've read in a very long time. And I do recommend Scarlett Scott if you're a romance reader. Thank you, Christi, for that recommendation. That was perfect. The next question is newest fictional crush. I actually have 2. I mean, I could have 3 or 4 because there's a few who I really, really love. But I feel like these 2 really do it the best. And Miller from Scoring Chances. This is in the Carolina Commons series by Tegan Hunter. He's a hockey player. I don't generally gravitate towards athletes. But also, August from Longshot. He's a basketball player. Again, don't gravitate towards, athletes. I prefer my dukes, like him. Oh, he's boyfriend material. No, absolutely. But the reason why I'm saying August and Miller is because the way they treated their woman. Miller was such a golden retriever. He loved her so much. He helped her when she was overwhelmed. He supported her through everything. I mean, she did him dirty a little bit, and he made her grovel, but I just loved him. I loved Miller. Scoring Chances was not my favorite book in the Carolina Commons series, but Miller is my favorite hero in this series. And then I haven't read Blockshot or Hookshot yet, but August set the bar high. The way he treated Iris, specifically after he supported her, telling her that she is strong and that she can do whatever she wants. And then after she left her abusive ex-husband, the way what he gave up $40 million contract and so he could be there to be in the same city as her and to protect her the way he's protected Iris and the way he loved her daughter. There's no words. There's no words for August. He is book husband material. He's beyond book boyfriend. He's book husband material. Love that guy. And that he set the bar high for this series. So we shall see. Okay, let's just move on quickly. So the next newest favorite character, Clara from Grim and Bear. I just love Clara. She's sunshine. I just love Clara. I just love her. And I even love Henry. Like, Clara and Henry. I just love them. They're like a warm hug. And so the next question is books that made you cry. Or the book that made me cry. Well, there's a couple, and they're for very different reasons. Well, sort of different reasons, I guess. First one is Long Shot by Kennedy Ryan. That book was very hard to get through, specifically with all the on-page domestic violence. That was incredibly difficult to get through, and I hate the way Kennedy Ryan wrote it. I felt her pain and her frustrations. I felt her longing. I'm talking about Iris. And I cried. I cried. And the way people were treating Jacob in Yours Truly at the beginning, Abby Jimenez. They called him Dr. Death because he had all the cases that were coming in that were going to result in death. And then his social anxiety was so bad, he couldn't even talk to people and to get to know everyone, and they were treating him horribly, and I felt so bad for him, and it just made me tear up. The one that made me tear up in a more warm, gooey way, I guess, was On Thin Ice by L.A. Cotton. And I read the first two novellas. They weren't anything great. They were fine. But then I read On Thin Ice. And it was... So what made me tear up was Scotty. And how... And I'm going to try and do this without crying. And I'm not going to succeed. Holy crap. Okay. Scotty. I have a child a lot like Scotty. My daughter is a lot like Scotty. And she nailed it so hard. Whew. I'm going to start trying not to cry. Okay. And I felt seen as a caregiver for what the hero was going through and the mother was going through. I felt seen. I really did. And I loved Harper as a heroine. In the way her dynamic with Scotty and how she accepted him for who he was. And the whole thing with the puberty, spot on. I'm not lying. It was spot on to the point where I was like, I'm tearing up now just thinking about it. I gave that book 5 stars. The romance was good, but the representation for autism in an adolescent and for celiac disease, as well as representation of a person who is a caretaker for a person with an adolescent with autism, was spot on. So that book, I will always recommend that book. Okay, moving on, because I want to go to the next one, which is books that make me happy. Get Thee Off My Lawn. That was just a fun, good time. It made me laugh and smile through the whole thing. Grim and Barrett by Juliette Cross. Clara and Henry are just sunshine incarnate, even though he is a necromancer. I just love that book. And I can't wait for the audiobook to come out. I was not waiting for the audiobook for that book. I read it. I'm more of an audiobook reader, but I wanted to read that one as soon as it came out, and I did. Those are a couple of books that made me happy. Okay, next one is Most Beautiful Books I Acquired for this year. I honestly can't tell you, but I can tell you that I had a couple on my shelves that I could show you that are really great. The Wild Land, Wild Love by Connie Mason. That setback is so fantastic. It was the last copy on Thrift Books, and I managed to snag it. Look at the back. Isn't that great? I loved it. That's cool. I love Crimson River, the way the river goes through through the woman. I think that's really, really pretty. I loved Catherine Cowell's cover. The next question is, what books do I need to read before the end of the year? Okay, so I need to read Mile High. That's on my list. And I haven't read it yet. That book is so hyped up, I don't know if I want to read it now. Okay, but I do want to read, and I do need to read the next two. Boyfriend Material by Alexis Hall and Wanting Mr. Kane. They're the last two books I have on my 12 books recommended by 12 friends list. The Ashes and the Star-Crossed King by Carissa Broadbent. There is going to be a new Immortals After Dark book. It's announced that it's coming. She hasn't announced the title or who the couple is. That's supposed to come at the end of this month, which is June, when I am filming this. And I can't wait. It's either coming at the end of this year or at the beginning of next year. So I'm just going to put it on this list because once it comes out, I'm reading it. Also, The Brood by Devney Perry, Iron Flame by Rebecca Yarros, In a Likely Event by Rebecca Yarros, Shattered Truths by Helena Hunting, that's BJ's story, Glimmers of You by Catherine Cowell. I'm sure there's more. So those are my answers to the questions in the mid-year book freakout tag. Let me know your answers down below, or if you're making the video. If you made it this far in this video and you want to let me know that you are here, leave me a star emoji. And until next time, my friends, happy reading. Bye.